One of the strangest stories to come to light in the past few weeks was an incident that was said to have occurred on March 30th, 1977 in Navarre, Florida, USA. It was spring break. 4 families embarked on a trip to Navarre Beach, where they secured a room at the Holiday Inn. The witness, who was 7 at the time, recalled that Jaws 2 was being filmed in the hotel when they arrived. During the stay, there was a special showing of the 1976 film Bugsy Malone, a film starring a young Jodie Foster, where only children were permitted to attend. The experimental film was famous for its casting of only child actors in adult roles. It was during the screening of the movie that things became very strange. The witness remembers feeling disoriented. They also recall hearing other children crying, and at least one of them was vomiting. At one point in the film, the witness attempted to get up from their chair and leave, but was quickly escorted back to their seat by an usher attired in a black suit and a black hat. The witness also saw 1 or 2 more of these men in black suits at the back of the theater. After the film ended, the witness felt fine and, for some reason, never felt compelled to tell anyone of the experience, as strange as it was. Not long after, during the same vacation, the witness recalls late one evening waking up in bed and looking across the dimly lit room to see a group of small figures standing there. Looking around, the witness noticed that their brother and both parents were fast asleep. As terrifying as this should have been to a 7-year-old child, for whatever reason, the witness felt almost at ease in their presence, like they had experienced it before. The witness suddenly became paralyzed as one of the beings, whom the witness described as looking like a typical gray alien, moved very fast across the room and hunched its face directly in front of the witness. The being produced a wand-like object and pointed it at the witness, who then blacked out. The next thing the witness recalled was waking up in a sand dune with a group of other children. It was located away from the hotel. The witness recalled staring up at an object, one with a glowing blue light around it, hovering directly over them. Once again, everything went black. The witness attempted to tell some of the other children on the trip, and even their older brother, but was teased about it. The question I have about the case is what was going on in the theater, and how was it connected to what happened later on? Was the theater type of were they prepping them or priming them for something else? You know, like a later mass abduction in which these men in black were, or these men in black suits were somehow involved in helping out with? Was the theater event an abduction unto itself, which is just incredibly strange? And then what happened later? What was with these children in the sand dune? The witness probably should try to look into finding out what happened in that period when they blocked out, that period of missing time. It would be interesting to find out what happened. I just want to know how they're connected. the theater incident and the incident later on. It's just so strange. On April 28, 1979, 16-year-old Tim Meisner and some friends from school had gone bear hunting at Dunn Lake near Barrie in British Columbia, Canada. During the hunt, the group observed a man-gorilla creature a fair distance away along the shore of the lake. It had a deer thrown over its shoulder and uttered screams which Meisner had never heard before. Later, he happened upon a concealed deer carcass, which Meisner believed was the same deer that had been slung over the shoulder of the creature. He noted that its neck had been broken. 2 days later, on April 30th, after returning to his home to retrieve a high-powered rifle, Meisner ventured back out to Dunn Lake to look for what he saw. Although some friends had accompanied him, he eventually became separated from them. Meisner claims that while trudging through the forest, he heard branches snapping and then found himself almost face to face with a creature about 56 feet away, who appeared to be about 9 feet tall, weighing between 400 and 900 pounds, covered in long, curly, dark brown black hair, except for a bare chest. The shoulder width was estimated to be 4 feet. It had a squarish face and looked more human than ape. It glared at him with huge, shining eyes and stank like a rotten garbage dump. To Tim, it appeared as though the creature was sizing him up, and in a panic, Tim shot at it. The creature dropped to one knee as if attempting to duck the bullet, and then it ran into the bush. Tim rushed to find his friends, but when they returned to the area, there was no sign of the creature, nor was there any blood that they could find. Numerous publications picked up the story, including the Calgary Herald, the Advocate, and the Kamloops Sentinel, which published a story on May 4, 1976. Ken Meisner, Tim's father, investigated the scene and found clear tracks, human in shape, 16 inches long and 9 inches wide, sinking in soft soil more than an inch. He even made casts, measuring the stride at 5 feet. Noted Bigfoot researcher Rene DeHanden, quoted in the Sentinel in another story also published on May 4th, spoke with Tim, and he noted that neither female breasts nor a penis was observed on the animal. The Calgary Herald published a follow-up story on May 11th, quoting a school teacher, Jack Wood, as having gone to the site to investigate for himself. There he found a footprint 16 inches by 9 inches with a 6-inch heel on the side of a mountain trail. Wood noted that it had 5 toes and no claw marks. One toe was much smaller than the others. He made a cast of it, and the Sentinel printed a picture to accompany the article. For 2 years after the encounter, Meisner trekked the woods around Dunn Lake in search of the creature. Over time, he would find enough evidence to convince himself that there was a family of 4 of these things, including the 9-foot-tall one he shot at in the area, but the only signs were tracks measuring 16.5 inches and broken branches that the tall creatures had knocked down. Following the event, Wayne Lahusik's farm, situated near Dunn Lake, was overrun with students trespassing on his property, hoping to bring down one of the legendary ape-like creatures. Lahusik and many others, including wildlife officers in the area, were eager to dismiss Tim's sighting as nothing more than a run-in with a bear, although Meisner knows what he saw, and what he saw wasn't a bear. A full account of Tim Meisner's encounter can be found in a museum in the Barrie area. He has become a minor local celebrity, even though Meisner himself has moved on with his life. Nowadays, he is almost reluctant to talk about the experience, choosing instead to focus on his family and running a fishing guide business. He no longer resides in Barrie, but visits from time to time. Tom Robertson was a ghost hunter in Scotland for many years. Around 1991, Robertson began receiving strange reports from locals living around Lochmaben, a small burg located 8 miles east of Dumfries. Tales of animal carcasses found drained of blood, and a mysterious figure roaming the woods. He began to stake out the area, often staying the night in his car. His wife Margaret tagged along for company, although she was far less enthused, and elected to spend most of her time inside the car while Tom investigated the woods. During one of these jaunts, Tom claims to have come face to face with something straight out of a horror movie. Just 15 feet or so away stood a most hideous sight, a walking, decomposing corpse. His face was as gray as granite, its eyes as black as coal. The skin seemed transparent except for the purple veins protruding from the creature's dead, withered tissue. It was tall but round-shouldered, and a hood was pulled over its head, dressed in sacking. The first words that popped into Robertson's head was vampire. As if reacting to being noticed, the creature sprang up on a branch and glided from tree to tree. In Tom's words, quote, Tarzan on steroids, end quote. Worried about Margaret, Tom raced through the darkened woods back to the car, and he got the heck out of there. Not long after, Tom's wife would go on to suffer a series of strokes, which forced Tom to give up ghost hunting to care for her. He would also suffer from illness in that time, and wondered if his sudden run of bad luck had something to do with his encounter with this hideous creature in the woods. Margaret eventually passed away some 8 years later, and Tom decided to venture back out to the forest surrounding the Lochmaben Castle. He began camping out in the woods. One night, Tom observed no activity and was beginning to feel restless. As dawn approached, he decided to walk some distance into the woods surrounding his camp. That's when he noticed a shadow. Stooped over like a hunchback, the same creature he had seen so many years prior was there. As if noticing Tom, the creature stopped and turned its head towards him. It glared at him with an evil intensity. Tom noted that it was grotesque and looked as though it had crawled out of a grave. As before, the creature escaped into the forest. Back home, Tom told a journalist friend who printed the story of his experiences in a newspaper. Not long after, a letter arrived in his mailbox. It had a New Orleans postmark. It was a woman called Mary Grant who had read the article and was asking Tom if he could catch it alive. From there, things would only get more bizarre. In November 2002, Tom received a phone call from a man with an American accent. The voice said, quote, "This is your little friend. I hope you can help me. You'll have got the letters from Mary. I really need help. Please." Unquote. Tom noted that the voice was effeminate, almost childlike, although familiar, but he couldn't place it until later. After the line went dead, that's when it became clear to Tom who he was talking to. He recognized the voice as none other than singer and pop icon Michael Jackson. To Tom it seemed incredibly strange, although Tom believes that Michael may have had thoughts of eternal life, and his encounter with the vampire outside Lochmaben was the key to that. Somehow Michael may have convinced himself that if he could capture a vampire alive, he might be able to use it to live forever. Certainly that line of thinking is crazy, but really not that outrageous given all the things we know about Michael. For his part, Tom refused to go back to Lochmaben. He would publish a book about it called The Ghost Hunter, Adventures in the Afterlife, co-written with journalist Murray Skugel. The book also outlined other strange things Tom encountered during his years as a Scotland-based paranormal investigator. In 2012, Tom teamed up with Kathleen Croney and her Dumfries-based paranormal group, Mostly Ghostly, to visit the Lochmaben Castle once again. Their investigation of the area resulted in numerous members of the group falling ill. According to legends, the castle was owned by the Bruce family, who moved there after the ruination of the Annan Castle. It's interesting to note that tales of vampires also revolve around the Annan Castle. The Bruces apparently sheltered a traveler during the night who later bit one of the family members. Afterwards, locals would avoid the forest around Lochmaben Castle, as it was said to be haunted by a vampire. Was this what Tom saw so many years later?